I've said it before, but 2020 has been an exciting year for Rocketbook. They've already released the new Panda Planner and Flip notebooks, as well as the Flip Capsule Folio, my reviews of which you can find in my Everything Rocketbook playlist. And we still know that they have their legal pad alternative, the Rocketbook Orbit, coming later in the fall. But today I want to give you my thoughts on this, the new Rocketbook Matrix notebook. As with all of Rocketbook's synthetic notebooks, the Matrix allows you to take notes on its polyester composite pages with Pilot's thermosensitive friction pens, then upload your notes to a cloud destination of your choice using the Rocketbook app and the 7-icon footer at the bottom of each page, before eventually erasing the page with water and starting over. As I've said in my other reviews, I really like how the high contrast border paired with the customizable destination footer expedites the scanning process, which is important if you're backing up your notes regularly. So from the workflow perspective, the Rocketbook Matrix is the same as all of their other notebooks, but it has a few page tweaks that you may find appealing. The notebook covers are still the same thin plastic that's susceptible to scratching, but on the inside, they've opted to include a 10-inch imperial ruler on the front and a 26cm metric ruler on the back. It's a small change, but a nice touch. The real changes to the Matrix start on the first page, which has a typical workbook introductory template that you can use to identify whose book it is, the general book identifiers, as well as a 16-line table of contents that you can use to index your work as you go. The top of the page also has a faint header for a title and the date. The only other noticeable change here is that they've brought back the page number in the bottom corner, which are now absent on the Core, Fusion, and Flip notebooks. I kinda like that there aren't page numbers on those notebooks because it makes me feel like I don't have to progress through the notebook sequentially, but in this case, I think it makes sense to have them in order to populate the table of contents appropriately. Flipping the page, we see that the backside is Rocketbook's standard, very faint lined pattern, but it has the same title and date header as the first page. Starting on the third page and continuing through to the end of the notebook on the 32nd page, we get the new square matrix templates. These consist of solid horizontal lines and dashed vertical lines that together make up a 1/4 inch or 6.35mm square pattern that works well for creating graphs and drawings, but that also doesn't feel unnatural to write across as if it were a simple line notebook. The biggest difference between this and Rocketbook's previous 7.5mm lined and 8.5mm dotted templates is that the matrix pattern is darker, so it will actually show up in your scans. This could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you felt about the previous templates that more or less disappeared in the scanned versions of the pages, but I personally like it because it feels a little more like a traditional paper experience when I'm looking at my scans. You'll notice a difference in how clear the lines show up depending on if you have your scan enhancement settings within the Rocketbook app set to best for black ink, which slightly fades the pattern around drawings and text, or best for color ink, which causes the pattern to come through more evenly. With the previous faded templates, I always preferred the black ink setting because the lines and dots were usually imperceivable and could come through a little irregularly with the color ink setting, but for the Matrix notebook, it's the opposite. So I kinda wish that these settings could be applied to each notebook or destination icon individually, rather than just once for all scans, because I use the black ink setting with my Flip notebook, but would prefer to use the color setting here. Hopefully this is something that Rocketbook can implement in a future app update. Unfortunately, I also uncovered a potentially more problematic consequence of the matrix pattern's prominence, which is that it causes a lot more artifact and false character recognition if you use Rocketbook's OCR transcription feature, regardless of whether you use the black or color ink settings. I haven't had an issue with it messing up my note titles if I use the auto-titling feature and nest the desired text between double hashtags, but if I don't auto-title a document, sometimes the scan mistakes the matrix pattern as hashtags and I'll get some crazy string title instead of the generic date and time title that the app would auto-generate. This isn't a big issue for me because I rarely use those generic titles, but it is a problem if you use the OCR transcription feature to create a full text backup of your notes, because you'll get a lot more accidental characters throughout the transcript file. Again, I don't regularly use the OCR transcription features beyond auto-titling and search, neither of which seems to be severely affected by this, but if you need a full text backup of your notes, I would recommend looking at one of Rocketbook's other notebooks until the company's optical character recognition program is a little better. Going back to the matrix pages themselves, the only other components are the same faint title and date header, which I kinda wish would auto-title your notes without needing the double hashtag workaround, but I wouldn't be surprised if this gets included in a future app update. And finally, Rocketbook has included a legend callout at the bottom of each page so that you can indicate the scale of each square if you're making a technical layout that requires you be a little more precise. All things considered, I do really like the Rocketbook Matrix notebook. The new pattern is a nice compromise between the regular lined and dotted templates, which can be quite useful if you make mixed form notes. As a whole, the notebook feels a little more structured than the Core, Fusion, or Flip notebooks that are less sequentially driven, but depending on what you're working on, this could be just what you needed. I would recommend the Matrix notebook for school notes or design work because it's a little easier to integrate text and figures together, provided that you don't need the full text transcription of your notes. If you're interested in picking one up, they currently only come in the letter size notebook and will cost you $34, but you can save a little extra using the promo code that Rocketbook is offering my viewers, which I'll link down below. Otherwise, if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.